My name's Gretchen Halra. I'm the Executive Director of Denver Arts and Venues. We've got a number of our team here today, both from Arts and Venues and other city departments, to help us talk about the Downtown Denver Development Authority. So this has been a presentation that we've given a couple of times. For today's presentation, we really want to focus on arts, culture, and activation and how those types of projects apply for this funding source, which is a new funding source. Well, it's a repurposed funding source, as you'll see. And we've got Q&A available that won't post for everyone, but we've got folks behind the scenes collecting questions, and we'll have time for that at the end. What I'm going to do is run through a slide deck that talks about the program broadly, and then come back in to focus on arts and culture at the end and be able to really be interactive on different types of projects and questions and what does this mean for you. So I'm going to move forward to the agenda slide. This is our Vibrant Downtown Denver. This is our new source of funds downtown, newly available for arts and culture. We'll talk a little bit about logistics, the program team, just a broad overview of the DDDA. What is the investment area? There's a map included. What is a plan of development, which helps guide the use of funds and the types of investment categories? How do you apply and how are applications reviewed? What's the selection process? What's the funding requirements and funding available? And then we'll move into questions. If you go to the next slide, you can see some of the ways to contact us. We'll also have this posted at the end of the presentation. So there's a robust website that's set up because we've got lots of interested people and project applications already submitted. So there's the newsletter and the website that has a lot of general information that's been put there over the last couple of months. There's general inquiries, and then we set up just for arts, culture and activation our own contact so that we can talk with you more specifically with these types of project applications. So if we go into today's session is recorded, as you heard. We will post it to the website. There are other sessions that are on there. I would just point you to that go into more depth on some of the other types of project applications. So you might want to, after this, go back and look at those. And as I mentioned, we'll hold questions for the end and anything that comes up after this. Also, if we can do some FAQs and post them to the website and try to get information out there for everyone. The next slide is our broad DDDA program team. So of those folks, I think today you get me. I think Nick Marion was also going to join, but there are 4 different types of projects that you'll see. So there's a bit of a specialization with each of the folks that are here. In addition, from our Arts and Venues team, we have Stephanie Freeman joining, Alexis Moore, Meg Purcell. Meg, some of you may recognize from our public art program. There's a little bit of overlap here, though this is not our 1% for public art program. Jen Wellborn from the mayor's office helped set this up. Katie Stracina runs our Office of Special Events and has been a great voice in this, and Molly Veldkamp from our Dottie team. So I think I've captured everyone. You just may hear from some of these other participants, or I may ask them to, they may be my phone a friend if I need help answering a question. All right, so we can go into what is a DDDA. It is a state statute enabled quasi-public entity. And it is formed through an election. That election has already happened. It was approved. And so we are off to the races. It was approved by voters last November. It's essentially a form of tax increment finance. So you may hear about the Denver Urban Renewal Authority and TIF, tax increment finance projects. This is a form of that is unique to downtown. It is a different enabling statute, so it has some different rules, but generally the same sort of idea, and we will get into that in a moment. The boundary that's required for these, they're used across the state. So Denver is not the only jurisdiction that has this tool in place. across every city that uses this is a requirement that they need to be located in your central business district. You can add additional property, but that's the core, and that's what you'll see today when we share our map of what the DDDA area is. There is a board that governs I'm going to just say DDA. I'm going to eliminate a D right here because it's faster. And I keep saying DDA. But there is a board. It's appointed by the mayor. City council approved the board of directors. City council president Amanda Sandoval serves on the board. Generally, their work is guided by a plan of development. That's something that our community planning and development department helped put into place last summer and fall. And city council did approve that plan of development, and it guides the use of the funds and the objectives that we're trying to reach downtown. So if you go into what's happened in Denver on the next slide, there was an original downtown Denver Development Authority that was created in 2008. DDAs are available, as you'll see here, from 2008 to 2038 for a 30-year period. It was originally used to help construct some of the public infrastructure improvements related to Denver Union Station, and I think that has been seen as being successful. It was so successful. If you think about what Union Station looked like prior to redevelopment and really just the dirt lots that existed behind the main terminal, the increment that has been generated and why this has been so successful is all of the sales and property tax from that development behind Union Station. So that is the delta. It goes from zero to hero. It goes from zero to a high amount of increment because that was new growth. And that is why this particular district was able to repay its debt in about half the time, about 15 years instead of 30 years that it's authorized for. And revenue has far exceeded the debt service that was taken out to build some of that public infrastructure. So what we can do now is extend and allow the remaining years of that increment flow to continue to benefit downtown and to flow forward for at least the next 15 years. Over this past period that just elapsed, over $400 million has been generated through that increment. That's why I like to bring the example of how we went from dirt to full development parcels. That's why that has been so great, equaling $2.3 billion of economic output. So this is a tool that has the ability to transform the areas it's used in. The authorized capacity that passed with that 77% approval rating as part of the election is 570 million. So that was what was put in front of voters, and that's our go forward position. What does this do? It supports catalytic investments that spur and accelerate economic growth and revitalization to deliver a family-friendly, thriving, and diversified downtown. And those are some of what you'll read about in the plan of development. One thing I want to clarify, and I'll repeat this a couple of times, this is not, it has an arts and culture project type. This is not a truly arts and culture program. It is about how do we accomplish economic recovery. So you'll see that in some of our criteria. It is about foot traffic and delivering economic return of people coming downtown. And I'll emphasize that a couple of times. On the next slide, you can see the investment area. So this is generally our central business district, our CBD. All projects must occur within this boundary. So it's that blue area. The investment areas, the properties there are in purple. The public areas are the publicly owned areas are really what extend off of that large blue, it's not really a rectangle, but on the left corner, top left corner of that investment area. Oh, thanks. There's a mouse right there. And you can see the public street network extending from that. So that is the cities to add. You have to petition properties in to join the district. So there's a petition for inclusion. And then those purple directly connected parcels also have the opportunity to petition in by the owners, and they have to have ownership and fee. And there is the petition process. A property owner comes forward, says, I'd like to join the district. There is a burden of proof that you own the property, and then there is an action that is taken by the DDA board to move that forward, and city council. So this has been where we have had a lot of questions. Is my property in the DDA district? Is it not? How do I petition in? There is a lot of information about this on the DDA website for the city, and funding is dependent on being spent in the DDA area. That's why this map really governs where funds are eligible to be spent. So I'll pause there. We might come back to this map if anyone has questions. It's an interactive tool on the website. So if you go there, you can really dig in to see, well, what does that boundary look like? And is it included? You can see Civic Center Park on the bottom. And then the bluish and greenish parcels there are the larger blue one is the convention center. The green is the arts complex. So you can see where some of our city landmarks are. If we go next to the plan of development that governs the use of the funds, you can see the investment categories: new development and adaptive reuse, parks and public space, thinking streets, along with connectivity and mobility, livability, economic opportunity and jobs, and arts, culture, and activation. So these are the named investment categories in the plan of development. The link for the plan of development, it's right there on our DDA website has a wealth of information there. From those investment categories identified in the plan of development, we have 4 application types. So the plan of development doesn't specify it doesn't have specific projects identified, just the categories for investment that can address economic challenges and promote growth. So these 4 categories are private development and adaptive reuse, public development, business incentives, and arts and culture. And we've got a slide on each of these that we will go through in a moment. On the next slide, we're going to start with private development and adaptive reuse. So this is really examples of this include when you read about some of the vacant properties downtown that have been commercial or office and want to come back to life as residential or affordable residential or anything like that. That's what this category is for. This is transforming underutilized, underperforming structures, looking at new land uses to introduce into that map area, looking at ground floor uses on foot traffic and retail and how we provide services downtown. The eligibility really is for those property owners. There is a pretty rigorous process to access funds. There's a pro forma so that you can show what you expect the building to generate and what the property owner share of that will be versus what the request of the city is for funds. And this is where you'll see large projects come through. So full buildings that want to convert use. And it can be a portion of a building. There's a lot of flexibility here, but this is really for private building owners to be able to apply for what they want their building to become in use. And I'm going to go to the next slide, has a vision board, office to residential conversions, historical conversions to diversify property use, any redevelopment or improvements viewed from a public realm so that people walking through the streets can interface with there could be lots of differing housing options, own, rent, co-op. There's a lot of room here for innovation. And then I'll move to the next. So that was our first category. Our second category is public development. This is parks and public space and connectivity and mobility. This is really about city-owned property. And what you'll see in this category is city agencies applying for the use of these funds. This process is managed through our mayor's office and Department of Finance. Bill Mosier, who was on our introduction slide, was brought in by the mayor to help oversee the program and the intent of it. So city agencies actually do have the ability to come in as essentially a third party and apply for funds. So an example of that would be if a Parks Department and or Civic Center Conservancy wanted to apply to make improvements in Civic Center Park, and I pointed that out as a parcel that's included in the DDA district, that would be an application that comes through as this category. So they are really the only eligible entities to apply, our city agencies here. All right, I'll go to the next category, which is business incentives. Oh, and I forgot our sizzle reel. Sorry. Thanks, Stephanie. So you can see just really going for activation, playscapes, things that engage people with that intent on driving economic return. So not for, similar to the arts, this is not for mobility's sake. It is about how to create access and engagement with our public realm so that people will come, shop, eat, dine, that they can come in and through and around downtown. So that's how projects will be evaluated. Okay, now we can go on to our next category of business incentives. This is similar to some current incentive programs that our Economic Development Office, DDO, has had in the past that can be the form of loans or grants. This is for new or relocating businesses that will increase the number of jobs, the amount of capital investment downtown, and really thinking about growth and expansion. So either attraction of new businesses or expansion of existing businesses. For eligibility for this, a business has to work with the property owner, and that includes having a letter of intent or a lease, so that coordination has to be enabled by the business owner. So someone can't come in and say, I have a great idea for a business, but the property owner doesn't want to do it. It has to be hand in hand coming in with these applications. So application requirements, project details, site-specific characteristics, what are the financials for this, what's the timeliness, how ready is this business to go, and then the impact, looking at jobs created, looking at salary targets for those jobs, foot traffic, ground level activation. Before we get, we've got a reel of photos. So these are people working. I don't know who picked these pictures, but I did not pick these pictures. So I want to go back just for a moment because we've talked about 3 of the 4 types. Stephanie, can you just go back to that application types on slide 11 in plan of development? So you can see the application types down here. We've talked about the first 3. Arts and culture is a really specific application. And I just want to pause here to say, there are opportunities for arts and culture, and particularly businesses in our creative economy or adaptive reuses that serve our cultural sector in the private development and adaptive reuse category, and in business incentives. So what we've been talking a lot about is arts and culture is not the only place for arts and culture to apply. It's a pretty, you'll see in a moment, it's a pretty narrow set of potential projects that can be there. And the bulk of the funds are anticipated to be in many of these other categories, which will be larger projects. So if you have an idea for a creative business that wants to come in and you need a connection with a business owner, or you don't have that lease and you need those contacts, that's where we work with our partners at DDO or the Downtown Development the Downtown Denver Partnership. Everything's a D and a D and an A and a P. Downtown Denver Partnership has all of those connections and can essentially help make some of those introductions. If we need, we can ask for that. But I just want to stress that arts and culture is not the only place for arts and culture, because, as I like to say, a creative business is still a business, and it's an important business for our downtown economy. So now we can go on to arts and culture. So, and this is where our team is really focused. Our Denver Arts and Venues will be reviewing these applications. The purpose of this is economic development. So when you picture coming downtown, or you're visiting a city and you think, I've got to get my photo with blank artistic installation, something that drives foot traffic and makes you, it's a thing you can't miss. It's a thing you have to see. That's what this particular of the four this category is. So it is for installations, large scale, high impact creative projects that enhance publicly accessible spaces, or infrastructure or long-lived equipment that supports downtown events year over year over year. And I'm going to pause there for a second just to land on events. There have been a lot of questions about are operating costs or general operating for events or festivals eligible for DDA funding. Right now, because this funding is time limited, when it is spent, it is spent. We are prioritizing single awards of funds to projects that create a long-term and sustained impact. So that would not be funding an event for a single year, and then the next year that funding goes away and we are stuck with another gap in funding. There is a lot of need for event funding in Denver. Right now, the DDA is focused on equipment. So if you think about infrastructure you need to support an event, like power, lighting, barricades, things that make a safe space for an event to happen time over time, that's the type of project we're looking for in that infrastructure or long-lived equipment priority for this category. The eligibility here is different also. It can be non-owners. So it can be artists, nonprofits, creative businesses, governmental or quasi-governmental entities, tenants, everyone that can work with the property owner, including at times our DDDA department. That's why we've got DDDA participation here today. If there is a large installation that you are interested in, making sure that there's coordination so that it's in a place in the right of way that doesn't obstruct traffic, sight lines, pedestrian flows. And there are those places available still downtown in that mapped area. What we will be looking for: technical specifications, visual aids, a site plan. What does maintenance look like for this? What is the timeline to get it up and running? And then the impacts: downtown vibrancy, sustaining foot traffic, a must-visit cultural destination. So some of the questions we've gotten are, what if we proposed historic markers? And is that eligible? The answer is yes, if the installation will be in coordination with the property owner, be that public or private. Will that project score as highly on sustaining foot traffic is a real question. And that's something that would, you know, if it's not as pop in your face, and let's go to the photos. These are examples from other cities that we see. Really big drivers, must see. Instagram, I have to show everyone this. I need to see this. I want to take my picture with this. This will make me come downtown. That's the type of arts and culture installation we are looking for to drive economic recovery. And this is another important point I want to make, and I mentioned it earlier. This is like our public art program in a lot of ways when we are looking at those technical specifications and maintenance. But it is not part of our 1% for Art program. And so there are that's a more formal call for activations, very site specific. So I just want to differentiate these. They have some things in common, but they are not the same. So these pieces are not intended to come into the city's forever art collection, but there can be a lot of conversation about how do we partner with you on maintenance needs, on how to support you getting these in place. So we are here as an agency to help support this. I will just say that these can be used for temporary exhibits that rotate. They can be used for something that travels nationally that we want to encourage to come to Denver to see. So it doesn't have to be a permanent forever installation, but it does have to have some amount of time to it, because it is just one-time funding. We're trying to maximize the amount of time, the number of days, the amount of people that will come see it, but there's room for variation and for some flexibility here. And I'm just responding to, I think I'll hold the questions, but if you guys can prompt me for those specific, hopefully we have a lot of questions on this. All right, let's keep going. So let's talk about applications. Again, lots of information available online. We can talk a little bit during the Q&A on which application type should I apply for. You do go in and register and create a profile. There's a confidentiality acknowledgement subject to Colorado Open Records Act. So everyone that's applying in some form, maybe we may get an ask of who applied, and we would want to be able to share that information in some way. So read the application guide. An important note here is that this is not a first come, first served program. So applications are accepted and reviewed on a rolling basis. We will do, we don't anticipate issuing all of the funds at once. It's over $500 million. But so we will look at a staged approach to try to accomplish the needs in different parts of downtown. When you read the plan of development, one thing you will see is that there's an emphasis for a need for economic recovery, particularly in upper downtown. So if you think about pavilions and continuing that direction towards Cap Heights, that is one of the areas that we have some of the most significant vacancies in retail and office and commercial spaces. So we will screen projects that are submitted. We may ask for supplemental info. We'll go through a timeline in the next slide, on 2 slides on review times. We'll try to make sure we're in touch with you through the portal. But we are looking for really complete, comprehensive applications. We are looking at that alignment with the plan of development I mentioned, and we are looking for any way to package projects together that can be complements to one another. So if there was an artistic installation proposed near an adaptive reuse project or a business incentive, how can we really have some of these projects start to reinforce one another? And again, the receipt of applications does not establish the order or priority of funding. Going on to evaluation criteria, I promise I'm almost done and we'll go to Q&A. You can see this is program-wide. This is not just for arts and culture applications. And so some are more relevant to what we're discussing here, particularly activation impact, foot traffic, magnitude. There are some feasibility and financial and readiness pieces of that we also care about, but that may be more important for some of the adaptive reuse projects that are coming in that are higher risk to deliver. So I will go to the next slide, the process overview. We started with a registration of interest. You'll see that on the website. It's optional. It was a way for us to be able to reach out and be in touch with people that are considering projects without having to go through the full application process. Right now, both are open, and for this category, we will leave both open. And it's a great way to touch base with us if you have questions and want to share a little bit about what you're thinking, so we can let you know that you're in the right category and other things. There will be, once you do complete an application, an initial screening for eligibility. This is where we are having meetings and presentations. So we did have info sessions that happened in March. Those are the ones that I mentioned that are posted. One was in person, one was virtual. We have this one tonight. We are the only group of the 4 categories doing one specific to our, who we think will be our interested audience for this. As you continue through evaluations, a notice of advancement that we are interested in proceeding with your project. There will be draft agreements that need to be with the city, so everything will be written down and memorialized. That property inclusions process is important. So if you want to attach something to a building, be in a private plaza, that property will need to go through the inclusion process. So that coordination with the property owner is paramount for this. There's DDA board approval. There is city council approval for us to disperse funds or enter into project agreements. And that is true for every contract in the city greater than $500,000. So it doesn't matter what contract is going through the city, DDA or other. If it is greater than $500,000, there is a city council approval process in place. And then executing an agreement and funding and performance monitoring. On the next slide is funding. These initial this analysis looking at mostly on the private side of a reuse project, thinking about what increment is actually generated from the change that's happening to maximize increment through the life cycle of this remaining district timeline. Loan versus lump sum, milestone payments or reimbursements, really thinking about redevelopment projects. That's where a lot of that will come into play, along with gap funding, and I mentioned that TIF regeneration. We're on the last one. We know that a lot of the arts and culture projects for these installations or equipment will need 100% funding upfront. Really, depending on the size of the requested amount, we could go to milestone payments. It will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. I'm emphasizing this because I don't want anyone to be deterred by the fact that they might have carrying costs. If I don't want that to be a disincentive to delivering an artistic installation, that is something we can work with you on, knowing how tight margins are. There are tariffs, there are timelines. We are here to be a partner in that with you, and we will have a signed agreement. So we can be that upfront funding partner as needed. I'm going to go to the last slide, which is questions we've received today. So what I was going to do is go through a couple of these, and then I'm going to have the team who's been collecting questions online pose some questions back to me, and keep generating questions if you feel like something wasn't clear. We will try to keep this general for this part of the session, and then if I'm happy to hang on once we're done with the formal part of the presentation. And if you have questions about, hey, more specifically, I have this particular idea, I'm happy to hang in if it's not something that the entire really impacts the whole group. So these are some things we've been hearing. We have 6. Do I need to identify a specific site and or have property owner approval to apply? Feel like we've covered that one. The answer is yes, you will ultimately need property owner approval to apply. If you don't know what site you want, though, that is something we can help with, especially if you are looking at publicly available private space. You're like, I have a great idea for Independence Plaza, but I do not know those owners. Or I think that this is the right intersection for this type of installation. Do you think it will work there? That's something that we can iterate with you on. So don't let your great idea, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good here. If you have a great idea, let us help you place it somewhere inside that DDA district. Can my event be funded through the DDA? Not at this time. We are not prioritizing single year general operating for events. We really want to look for projects that can be recurring time over time. That's why we focused on equipment or other installations, power sources, lighting. How can we help enable a site to deliver multiple events over multiple years with this one-time funding? I want to activate a vacant space with an arts-related business. Which category should I apply under? And that is potentially 2. And that's why I came back to that application type. It could be that you want to team up with a business owner that's doing some sort of adaptive reuse, and including a ground floor use. It could be through that business incentive category, where you are working with a lease with a landowner, but they're not going through a bigger process. This is going to be the one thing that they want to support you actually coming in, and you want to bring in a concept and really have a way to offset a lot of those upfront costs. I want to, which one am I on? 3, 4. My project idea falls into multiple categories. How should I proceed? Pick the one that fits best so that you're not filling out multiple applications. Let us know you're doing it. Please reach out to that, and we'll have contact info on the next slide again. Let us know you're doing that. The different project application teams are working together, and we can help figure out where that best fits. If you want to do a business and put an artistic installation right out in front, we will help you work through that. So we had to land on 4, but we'll help you through that. And just, I think staying in touch with us on that helps us understand how to to help you navigate the application process. How much funding is available for the arts, culture, and activation category? How much can I apply for? It's TBD right now. We do know from past performance of the tax increment area that we can estimate, we asked voters for approval of the 500 million plus dollars for the 15 years. So if anyone wants to do math, you could think of that as the equivalent of $40 million a year. A portion of that will be available for arts, culture, and activation. I anticipate that our category will have lower costs than renovating an entire building and converting it to affordable artist studio housing. That would be a goal. Someone should apply for that in another category. So I don't think the majority of the funds will go to arts, culture, and activation. What we want to do is be first in and first out the door to help activate foot traffic in downtown and provide some early wins. So we are looking for timing and speed. But if you had a project that was $25,000, or you had a project that was $250,000 or $2.5 million, put them in. That's what I would say. There is no defined defined number yet for what we're gonna do with arts, culture, and activation. It may change over the course of delivering these projects. And then the last question really isn't a question number 6 because it's other general questions. So now I'm going to hand this back to the team.
So right now we have 2 general questions that I think you could answer. The first one is, can a nonprofit who activates in downtown public space partner with a rental company for equipment purchased from the program? For example, the nonprofit would own the equipment, but would have an arrangement with a rental company to store and deploy the equipment. Could that equipment occasionally be used outside of downtown?
So it's a good question, and it's an interesting one as we're trying to figure out the event equipment. It is absolutely true that any of the DDA funds have to be used in the DDA area. So anything that is purchased through this would have to only be used in downtown. Otherwise, we are outside of the requirements. I think there's a lot of flexibility in how equipment is purchased and deployed. So if a nonprofit purchased equipment and wanted to use the DDA funds for that purchase, that works. If the nonprofit wanted to use the funds to pay for deployment year over year, that would not fit the use of one-time funding for multiple years. That's really a general operating cost. So as long as it's the cost is specific to the cost of the equipment or the cost of the power source that we want to put somewhere, those are really the guidelines. And I think the rest is something that we could try to figure out with you. And particularly related to safety and enhanced safety. When you think about event equipment, we really want to help expedite as we think about inviting more people downtown and larger crowds and some of the incidents that we've seen across the country. Safety is a huge priority for us in this, and we will look for creative ways to enable these purchases. And then storage, that's another way that we could partner. But the use of them, typically what happens when event organizers are coming downtown and they use type 3 barricades that you see to block off streets, those costs are borne by the event operators as part of their year over year event cost. So those types of things would not be DDA, the purchase of the equipment would. I hope that helps answer that question.
The next one is, could these funds be used to subscribe to public art subscription that changes out art on a regular basis?
I believe so, and we might have to go back and talk about that, but there is a lot of flexibility to have the installation in place. How we do that. Oh, it just said my connection is unstable. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I would submit that and let us work that through with you on how to do it. I mean, we are in a problem solving mode. We want to try to help you make these projects work and be successful. And we can iterate on that as after we get the application in. Our team's ready to do that.
Thank you. The next question is, what happens after the initial application has been accepted and the DDA is interested?
Oh, let's go back to that slide. All right, so there you can see we've got a complete application in step 3. Our team, many of the folks that I named supporting this project application type, will do that initial screening and evaluation, and then we'll provide a notice of advancement. So that's really where we're telling you, hey, we are interested in this moving forward. We think it meets the minimum criteria, and we think it exceeds on the activation criteria. So that's where we'll say we're ready to move forward at this time. That's when we will, we'll have quite a bit of information from you from the application already, and we will turn that into a draft agreement and go back and forth to make sure that these are terms that work for you. That includes the maintenance, the timeline for installation, how funds are delivered, anything that's really needed to help you deliver the project and know that you've got certainty with us. And we've got certainty with you that we are getting what you applied for. So then we'll have a draft agreement. We will have to time that with the property inclusion process. So if there is a property with multiple types of applications and they're not ready to submit for their inclusion in the district yet because they're having a change of use that changes their property tax increment or sales tax increment, that could be the only delay. We just have to really time with the property coming in. If it's in a public area, a park or a street, those properties will be included right away. So that step of number 9 is sort of handled behind the scenes by city agencies. And then the formalities of approval through the DDA and city council. And then at that point, we've got their permission. Then we take that draft agreement and we make it a final agreement. So that's how it's executed. I hope that helps. And we'll have this online too, but we will be working with applicants through every step. You may apply and say, hey, we've received your application and we're holding it for now. You may apply and we'll say, hey, you didn't meet the minimum qualifications, or you don't seem ready to go because you haven't been in touch with the property owner, or can we help you meet a property owner or ask the DDP to help with that. Or we may say, this is ready to go. We're going to include you in this batch of projects moving forward to DDA board approval. It's really going to vary. Like I said, it's not first come, first serve, and it is about creating the impact and allowing the projects to come on and come through in tranches, essentially, that support one another. So we will definitely be responsive to you and let you know we have it. There's some estimates of time, assuming that everything continues to move forward. But the most important thing is that you are not surprised, and we are communicating with you on exactly where you're at in the process. It will keep evolving. It's the first time we've done this, so we will stay in touch with you.
Just got another question. Would priority be given to family-friendly / all ages projects?
Well, that's a great question. And it really comes down to thinking about the plan of development, because when we have projects, we want to drive what that plan of development is trying to accomplish. And I think if we go back to the plan of development slide, I know it does reference those types of activations. Let's scroll back through. Livability, I think really relates to that. I felt like we had another POD slide, but the answer is if a family-friendly activation does these things, yes. So not per se, it's really about what impact that activation has. And I will just say what we've seen so far downtown is that family-friendly activations drive a lot of interest. And so we see that happen, and I would think that would do well.
So those are the only questions we still have in the queue. So I don't know if we want to offer any specific questions that are project-based. And we can kind of end this general piece here. And then if people want to hang on and ask questions that are specific to their project.
Yeah, I'll close out our main session. If you do have a question that you want to clarify or ask in the chat now, this is the right time to put it in if it's general. If we end this session and you didn't feel comfortable in this format, or you didn't think of it, or something came up, use that general inquiry page. We'll get that, but please use the arts, culture, and activation inquiry. That is the fastest way to be in touch with us, and we really want to help get some great projects in and through this queue. And we are available. We want to work with you on these projects. This is a really unique funding source that we have access to, and it was a lot of work for a lot of different city team members to enable it in a year. And so I'm excited to see what happens next and what projects come in. I'm really excited that arts and culture has a specific lane here. I also want to encourage you. We're the arts culture application team. If you don't know how to connect to those other project types, we can help with those connections too, and help you think about which category and how to apply there. So happy to be supporting. All right, if there's no other questions, I think we'll end the recorded webinar.